Hi guys, I'm Phill from Australia and I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm currently doing a series where I show you how I approached practicing and learning all of the music from my album, The Operatic Trumpet. Last week we covered off on Largo from Xerxes by Handel. If you haven't checked that one out, I'll leave a link in the description. Go check that one out. I'll also put a card up here. This week we're going to work on Softly Awakes My Heart by Camille Saint-Seans. This arrangement's by Phill Sparke and it's one of my favourite pieces on the entire album. I'll leave a link in the description for the sheet music if you'd like to work along with this video. It is an affiliate link, so I will get a little bit of a kickback, but if you purchase using that link, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps support this channel to keep growing without you having to spend any money. The recording from my album, The Operatic Trumpet, it's available on all streaming services. I'll leave a link in the description so you can go and find that and have a listen to it before we start the tutorials. I find by listening to the music a lot before I start trying to play the song or play the music makes it really helpful and more beneficial for me learning the piece. It also helps me learn it way faster, and I also learn it a lot better. This piece is an aria from the opera Samson and Delilah, and is predominantly, or it's a solo for Delilah, the soprano, and she's telling Samson how much she loves him. Now the whole aria in this part is, on the trumpet, is Delilah's part. But there are some interludes later in the aria where the piano does cover off on Samson's part. So listen to the recording and you'll hear where I interlude with the piano and I'm working really closely to what the piano is doing to cover off the two parts. The tempo for this song is andantino. Now we want to be slow, but you don't want to go too slow. I prefer to practice this when you first start, practice it at about a moderato tempo and then work your way back to the andantino tempo. I feel by practicing at a slightly faster tempo for slow music, it makes it easier to keep the tempo consistent and keep the tempo moving and flowing, rather than quite often when we try to play slow pieces, we try to play too slow and then we keep slowing down. So we lose interest and we lose momentum. You also want to keep the tempo up a little bit because the phrasing is 6 bars, which is a little bit longer than what most people are used to. I'm going to demonstrate the first 2 phrases here because these two I like to approach very similarly. We want to be quite subdued with what we're doing, but we want to be slowly opening up. So we're a little bit timid, we're a little bit nervous because this is where we tell someone that we love them for the first time. So we want to be timid, we want to be but loving, and vulnerable is probably the right word I'm looking for here. So you can hear with these first 2 phrases, you can hear that there is that little tendency to be a little bit shy. But with each phrase, we want to be a little bit more confident because each time she's talking, Delilah's talking or singing in this case, she gets a little bit more confidence to lean towards what she wants to say, which is, I love you, be with me forever. This next bit, I like to see as she kind of goes a little bit too far with the confidence and makes her bold statement but doesn't quite get there and then shies away. So here I want to be a little bit bolder at the start of the phrase and then I want to go back to that little bit of a timid kind of feel. And then we repeat that same thing, but a little bit more bold. So each time she gets a little bit more confident to tell Samson exactly how she feels. So you can see how I gave it a little bit more for that pickup. And then I came back to a little bit more subdued. Remember, she's still really nervous at this point, or I would be really nervous at this point, being the first time I'm telling someone how I feel about them, and you're not certain if they feel the same way. So I'm going to piece those two together and you can hear the difference. So right on B, if you're looking at the score, I'm a little bit more bold, but then I shy away. And then a couple of bars later, I'm a little bit more bold again, but then I still shy away. You'll also notice the string jando there. Now, where I get to the string jando, I'm making the notes all really, really long. So I'm thinking width of notes, I'm thinking width of sound. That also helps with the vibe that we're trying to create here. Now that we're at the 4/4, I feel like Delilah is a bit more timid again. She's made a couple of bold statements and she's hinted at her bold statements, and now she's a little bit nervous because she hasn't yet had the response that she was expecting. So now if I was watching the opera, I would imagine that she would be facing away from Saint-Seans and waiting for Saint-Seans to come to her. The 4/4 also changes from those 6-bar phrasing back to the 4-bar phrasing. So we want to shape it in 4-bar phrases in this point here. So at the 4/4 here, you would have noticed I've backed off the speed a little bit, and that tells us here with the poco più lento, I've also come down a little bit with the volume. Now I've done that to help create that little submissive kind of timid vibe. And I've done that for the first 2 phrases. But then when we get to C, which is the 3rd phrase of this section, we've got crescendo here. Now here, as we're crescendoing, right, Saint-Seans obviously, in my opinion, right, while we're watching the aria, we're creating the vibe of the aria in our mind and visualizing this. Saint-Seans coming to her to give her a little bit of the attention that she's kind of seeking to go, yes, I'm feeling more confident to tell you what I want to say. And there, I'm increasing the dynamic, so I'm doing that crescendo. I'm also using rubato where I'm increasing my speed very, very slightly, especially after I get onto the last 3 quavers of every bar. So beats 3 and 4 into 1 of the next bar, and then I bring it back a little bit. But then I go and do the same sort of rubato in the 2nd phrase sort of thing. So crotchet, crotchet, da, 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 dee. And I'm leading into the next beat 1 with the crotchets. I'm using the quavers, sorry. I'm using those quavers or 8th notes to lead into the next section, and that helps me gain a little bit of that that excitement in what's being sung. Have another listen. I'll go back to the poco più lento, the 4/4, and cover off all of those phrases together. Now that we're back to the tempo 1, we're going back to verse 2 essentially, if you're talking contemporary terms. We've got the same theme as we do at the very opening. We're still back down to that soft, kind of gentle dynamic, but we're going to grow more through this time here. So you want to approach it similar to the first phrase, but you also want a little bit more excitement so that it's different enough to the beginning. So very, very similar to the beginning and when we start, but a little bit different enough to create a little bit momentum so it doesn't become boring. Now this phrase through D is where we start to really ramp up the excitement here. She's gaining confidence, right? Samson has given Delilah enough indication that he feels the same way about her as she feels about him. So now she's starting to get a bit bold. This is where Samson's starting to sing back to her, and you'll hear this in the piano part. So remember to listen to the recording from my album, the link's in the description, and then you'll notice where the piano is interluding as Samson. Now once again, we want another bold statement, just like the beginning, but this time we've got a few hints from Samson. So this time we're a little bit more confident, we're a bit more bold with our approach because we're getting a bit of feedback in the direction of what we want. This is my favorite part of the entire aria, right here. This is now firmly, the two have come together, Delilah has told Samson how much she loves him, and he has responded, yes, I am in love with you, right? So this is really groundbreaking sort of moment for these two. Now, you'll notice but from E, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bar of E, we have those quavers or eighth notes. They have got tenutos on them. Now the tenutos, yes, we want them to be long, but we want a little bit of firmness on the front of them. You would have noticed how I was very deliberate with the tempo of them, and I was also very deliberate with the length and the articulation. Have another listen to that. I also like to put a little rel on the last couple of quavers because we have the writ on the next bar. So I actually bring the writ backwards a little bit, so I start a touch earlier, but not too much earlier, just the last couple of quavers. That way I'm setting up the writ for my accompanist on the piano, and they understand how much rel I want in this point. Now I did a little sneaky thing here, right, and I like to do this and I find it really, really musical, and I've heard this from a few singers when they do it, and every time it just makes my heart flutter, right? It gives me the joy of music that I really love playing, where in the quaver or just before the 4/4, so I've got the 2 bars on the C sharp, and then I like to put the D on that last quaver in the 3 or the last 8th note of that bar before I start the 4/4. Have another listen, you might notice it this time. Now this is a lot harder to do than what you might think. It might sound easy just to add one more quaver or eighth note, but that then extends this phrase quite a lot, okay? So essentially the phrase is beat 2 of the bar before E through until, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bars of this phrase. That requires quite a lot of breath control. Quite a lot of breath control. So if you can make that happen, it'll sound absolutely incredible. But if you can't, don't worry about it. That's quite a demanding thing to do. This section at the 4/4 here, you notice that, right, so Delilah has told Samson how much she loves him. He's reciprocated. They're both, you know, singing how much they love each other. This is great. But you would think, why does Delilah come back to piano dynamic here? Now this is because she's giving Samson a turn to sing over the top of her. So this is duet territory here. So you want to make sure that the piano part, which has this new melody that's not been part of this aria before, he wants to take the lead role, and Delilah wants to give him the lead role. So make sure as a trumpet player when you're playing this, you want to give that lead role to the piano and be not submissive, but be sympathetic to that and supportive of that role as well. And then as you grow through this F section, that's when you come back to eventually taking back the lead to finish off the aria. Now, as you can hear, this is a beautiful section of the piece, but it is also very, very demanding. It's very taxing. And if you don't feel a little bit chopped out by the time you get to these last 2 bars of rest, then you're probably not being emotional enough with it. Because I know that every time I play this, regardless of whether I'm fresh or whether I'm in the middle or the end of a recital or where I'm at, if I'm playing this, by the time I get to there, I need those 2 bars of rest. So that's not because I'm blowing too hard or because of anything other than I'm putting so much emotion into it that it is actually fatiguing that way, okay? Because it's not just about the lips sort of thing, it's about creating the emotion. Now we're starting to chill out because it's coming towards the end of the aria. They've both said that what they want to be saying. They're both ready to go and spend the rest of their lives together. So Samson, in our 2 bars of rest, has a little interlude to say, yep, I'm keen. And then Delilah comes in at the end. Now this bit is really tricky because we have the octave jump here. You do not want to try and smash the upper octave. The best way to approach this, because this is how the singer would, is like you're going into the falsetto or your head voice. So, that kind of approach. So it's gentle in the top octave and like regular sort of beautiful sound in the lower octave is how you want to approach this. Now you don't want to think up to go to the top octave and you don't want to think down to come back down. If you're thinking up and down, especially over this octave, you will split the top note and or push it really, really sharp. But what you'll also notice might happen is when you come back down, you might split the lower octave again. So you want to try and be nice and consistent. You can think down as you go up is what a lot of people do, which helps prevent the pinching and the splitting. But you can also do what I do, where I think in a forward momentum. So I try to think, and I try to think forwards rather than up and down. That helps me limit my pinching and splitting notes. And that's how I approach Softly Awakes My Heart. Don't forget to go and have a listen to it on my album. It's on all of the streaming services. I'll leave links in the description below. And if you'd like the sheet music, there's an affiliate link to that in the description as well. Next week, I'm going to start working on Theme and Variation from Norma, which is also on my album. So if you'd like to listen to that and get prepared, we're going to start working on that. We won't do the whole piece in one video because there's quite a lot in that one, but we'll get started on that and we'll continue working through that for a little while. As always, I'm Phill O'Neill from Australia, and happy practicing.